Welcome back to episode 38 of the Second Look Sports podcast. I'm your host today, Justin Arnberg. Joined along with us is Alex Mandarino and Brandon Brown. Guys, thanks for joining us on an early Saturday morning after learning the result of Game 5 of the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Seattle Mariners. We wanted to wait until, we usually record on Fridays, but we wanted to wait until this game, Game 5, was completed as we wanted to know the result before we came on and talked. And let me tell you, I think it was well worth waiting until we learned the result of Game 5 because our impressions have probably changed in the last 24 hours of the Toronto Blue Jays and what their hopes are for the rest of the series after probably the biggest decision in franchise history that turned out to be an absolute disaster. But we will wait to get into that because I just want to talk about the silver lining for 1 second, and that would be you leave Toronto down 2-0, you head to Seattle, you need to win at least 2 out of 3 games, and that is the silver lining for the Toronto Blue Jays. They did their job in Seattle when you look at what they need to do. So, can you guys take that as a silver lining as well as they head back to Toronto down 3-2 against the Seattle Mariners? Brandon, we'll start with you as you have a new fresh cut for the people that's watching on YouTube right now.
That's right. Thank you. After we recorded last week, I went and got my hair cut and went to a wedding on Sunday. So it was fun. Good week. But it's been a roller coaster week, as you mentioned, just because of the way that the Blue Jays have been playing with our emotions. It feels like last week when we spoke, we all were kind of in agreement. It feels like that the Blue Jays were in a good spot. You know, they played really well against the Yankees and were ready to move on and obviously take down the Mariners. At least we all thought it would be, maybe not elementary, but, this Blue Jays team was on a trajectory that I think, we didn't necessarily expect the Mariners to stop, but I think we knew that they would be a tough opponent, and they have been, absolutely. I mean, the first 2 games in Toronto were tough, and the Mariners obviously jumped out and looked good, and then Jays got to Seattle and decided to flip the switch, and that's how we got to that 2-2 tie, and then obviously, like you said, Justin, the decision last night to take out, or to at least to put in Brendon Little. I don't think it was so much taking out. I believe it was Louis Varland at the time, but it wasn't so much about taking him out, but who you decided to put in that spot, and that was Brendon Little, who did the Blue Jays no favors. I'm sure we'll get into that deeper, but yeah, it's just been a crazy ride of emotions the last week and a bit, and here we are with the Jays coming back home with 2 must-win games ahead of them.
Yeah. I'm glad you decided to take the high road on this one, Justin, to kind of kick off the episode, because I think there's a lot of different ways we could have started here. But if we're looking at it from a positive lining, George Springer isn't, he's not in the worst spirit right now. Obviously, right knee contusion, so that's another silver lining, right? He couldn't play in Game 5 on Sunday while we're recording Saturday, the extra day off helping. I mean, yeah, like if you look at it from a bird's eye view and you say, hey, when the series started going down 0-2 at home, I had given up hope. Like, truthfully, I was like, I just don't see it happening. It's nothing to do with the Jays themselves. They're a really resilient team. And as Leafs fans, the 2 of the 3 of us on here, we've seen Toronto teams choke in the playoffs. And I feel like there's just like that feeling of the Jays doing the same. And they're a completely different team. The Jays are a complete team. And the bottom of their lineup is just as important as their relief pitching and the top of their lineup and their stars. So I think the silver lining, like you sort of alluded to, Brandon, is that they're 2 games at home. Trey Savage, they're hopefully soon to be ace on the mound. 11 strikeouts in his playoff debut. Not the best outing in his previous start in the playoffs, but still pretty manageable for a player in his position at his age. And so I do think that the Jays are poised to win Game 6. I do think they have a pretty good chance at doing so, mainly just because after that stinky loss and the way it played out, like, you really want to come back and put pen to paper and kind of finish this series in a positive note. We'll see how it turns out, but I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling about the future. I'm disappointed and shocked about the present, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I think that when you look at, when Toronto goes to Seattle and then you tell anyone, hey, they're going to win 2 out of 3 games. I think anyone takes that. And I think that's the silver lining here is just that they're still alive in this series. That decision last night, which we're going to get into more, doesn't actually ruin their whole series yet, in terms of they're not eliminated. But like there were like Vladdy looked terrific. He continues to be probably the best player outside of Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs right now. And even probably better than Shohei Ohtani, because outside of last night, Shohei Ohtani, to be completely honest, has not been great at all, in my opinion. So, like, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. continued to stay hot. Ernie Clement stayed hot. Andres Gimenez came up with clutch hits. They got a good outing from Shane Bieber. They got a good outing from Mad Max, which we can talk about. They got a good outing from Kevin Gausman. Again, the pitching's been there. It was literally just one decision that hurt them last night. So you just got to hope that, the best team at home this season gets back to doing what they were able to do in the regular season at home. And I like the bet that they can at least win game 6 and force it to game 7. I would think that they can. I think that the off day, like you said, is going to help George Springer recover a little bit. As John Schneider alluded to last night, the X-rays came back negative on him, and if he'd be shocked if he's not playing on Sunday, because if he isn't, he's really, really hurt.
He wanted to get in, like he was walking to first base.
He wanted to get in again, but
I couldn't believe
that.
I was like, there's absolutely no. Once you saw him take a few steps, you were like, there's absolutely no way he's going to stay in this game. Like, you got to take him out. Yeah.
Go ice the thing right away and just get it ready for Sunday, because that's what it is. But yeah, so it, like, when you look at this whole thing, at the end of the day, it's not that bad. Yeah. Having said that, it is really, really bad. Really bad, because of the decision last night by John Schneider. It might be the worst decision in all of franchise history. And I'm talking, it is so bad. It is, to me, this is 10 times worse than pulling Jose Barrios in 2023. You are up 2-1 against the Seattle Mariners in a game 5 in which you have control of going into the 8th inning. Meaning you just need 6 outs. Why the hell are you not using your 2 best relievers to get those 6 outs? We're not playing matchups anymore. We're just simply not. That's out the window. What you need to do is get your 2 best guys into the game, Jeff Hoffman, Sir Anthony Dominguez, whichever one you want to use in that order, I don't care. But you cannot have Brendon Little start that inning for you. Like, just to turn over Cal Raleigh and Jose, oh my gosh, I'm Blanco. Just blank. Yeah, Blanco. Like, you can't do that. You can't have him turn those guys over just for the match. Like, what? Like, why? Why? I don't know. Like, when you guys saw that Brendon Little was the guy warming up in the bullpen, what was your thoughts?
I mean, I was certainly a bit confused. I can understand the line of thinking, and I totally agree with pretty much everything you're saying, Justin. The one thing that I'll save John Schneider on, and again, this is not, and I'll explain what I mean by that, is I understand there's a reason for doing pretty much anything, and that's fine. And I do think that in that spot, he was better off going to a Dominguez or a Hoffman. I think you'd probably, for me, I think you would probably go Dominguez just because Hoffman's been the 9th inning guy all year, so why deviate from that? But the way the Jays bullpen has pitched this year, they've obviously been great at times, but it's never a guarantee with these guys. Even the Dominguez, we saw him give up the grand slam. I'm not saying that the whole thing is his fault.
Yeah, when you get into that situation, I feel like that's not on him. I think that's on Brendon Little completely.
Oh, I agree. He's in a shit spot. But at the same time, the one thing that I'll give John Schneider pass on is it's never, like I said, it's never a guarantee. But I think the problem is he put himself in the middle of it all by making that decision, as opposed to just going with his best guys. And Joe Siddle, obviously, last night after the game was incensed. Even he saw Brendon Little up just like us and was asking, what's going on here? This is not the guy I would put in. And he was right, and he was great on all those points. So, like I said, Justin, I can't disagree. I feel bad that it could have gone another way, but he also could have made a different decision, and it could have gone the same way. So, in the end, you can't be the reason that everybody looks to. That's why it's a problem.
If he makes the decision to go with Sir Anthony Dominguez or Jeff Hoffman, whoever it is, you can live with that decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they blow up,
and it blows up in his face. I mean, but you could not live with Brendon Little being the guy that you trust out there in that situation, especially with the ERA and everything since August 29th, I think it is. He has a 6.0 ERA, a 1.88 whip, which it's just not good. He has 11 walks as well. It's not good. It is not good.
Yeah, I saw a stat that I think it was like the last 7 weeks, his right-handed batters are hitting 500 against
500.
Yeah, so it 500. Really, the idea that he was going to flip those guys around and make them easier to get out is kind of, it doesn't really make sense. Again, like it was a baffling decision, even though, like I said, it was never going to be easy. No one thought that, but again, you just can't be the reason that people look to and say, we could have gone a different way and maybe you see a different result. So it's unfortunate, and it's going to be another one of those moments for John Schneider. The Barrios one, it never dies, and I don't think this one will for a long, long time.
That's the concern, is that, like, obviously I think you can look back and say that John Schneider's managed the team pretty well all season, like especially against the Yankees. I don't think you can, I mean, the team won, so obviously winning cures all, but there's a lot of decisions that he made that I think you can agree with. You can say, like, there's a reason they're here, and John Schneider has a big reason big part of the reason that they are in the ALCS right now. But we looked at how Dan Wilson managed his team in Game 4, and he pulls Luis Castillo early for some pundits, and I agree. I think, like, the way it turned out, a lot of people said that he played too much of a hand, like he tried to get way too involved in his team. And then you see last night, like, how does John Schneider not look at the situation and say, well, we can't overmanage the situation? Look at what happened to the Mariners, the team we just played yesterday. And it's some situations where you're sitting at home and you're watching a game like I am last night. We all are watching in some capacity, and you're thinking, okay, why is this happening? Like, why is Little in the game? And you're thinking, like, am I the only one that maybe is missing something? And no, like you're saying, Joe Siddle, national treasure, the way that he's talking about it, like, he's being honest. And I think you need to be that way as a commentator. Caleb Joseph said the same thing. Like, you can't go to a guy where, if regardless of how this all happens, you can live with Louis Varland giving up a 3-run home run to Aaron Judge because it's a 100-mile fastball inside. It's a great pitch, and he's pitched well for them. You can't go to a guy who clearly has been shaky, and you feel horrible for Little. I don't think anyone in Canada, right, like, is sitting here being like, well, there are lunatics, but you can't be like, well, what did you expect? People are mad, but like, you almost expect it. And the point I'm trying to make is that, for once, you kind of look around and everyone seems to be thinking, don't do this. And yet Schneider is the only one that thinks this is a good idea. And yes, to your point, Brandon, like, hindsight's 2020. If Brendon Little strikes out the side, we're obviously not having this conversation. And it could go a couple different ways. I also want to say that we were not confident in Jeff Hoffman, the group of us here, heading into the playoffs. So we are aware that, like, Hoffman isn't your best option, but he is your $11 million guy. And although we'd probably be pissed off if he also gave up a home run, or if he let this go in the 9th, for example, you can't look and say Brendon Little is your best closer. What did he say reliever? What did he say, Schneider, in the post game? He was like, he's great in high leverage situations.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Lie.
When? Because he gave up. I think he faced
earlier in the season is what he's talking about.
And listen, Brendon Little, to start the year, was actually a very important piece of the team. He was a guy who performed well when the team was struggling to start the year. I think they had, like, through 30 or 40 games, they almost had the same record as last year, and they didn't make the playoffs. So he's an important piece to why they're here. That's 100%. But, like, it's a what have you done for me lately, both for Brendon Little's case and for John Schneider. It doesn't matter how he managed the year. I don't know if you should fire him. I think that's a little bit over the line, but are we surprised if they lose the series and he's not coming back because of this? I don't know. I think that's a stretch, but it's crazy.
I would say that if he didn't get fired in 2023, he's not getting fired now, especially after making the ALCS.
Agreed.
But, like, here's the thing. I will say that whatever happens, if they go to lose this series, the season is now taunted by that one decision.
Oh yeah.
It's just everything that everyone is going to look at is going to say we could have won a World Series potentially if John Schneider doesn't put Brendon Little into the game. And yes, you're right. Everyone feels bad for Brendon Little. I feel bad for Brendon Little, and not like it's not just the situation. Like you can see it in his post game comments. Like he's feeling it. Like he knows that it's him. Like it's all on him, and he is the reason that he literally said, "I screwed up the game." Like you don't know what else you want him to say. Like he took responsibility. He's the one who gave up everything. Like, and it's not just it's not just that he gives up the one shot, the solo shot homer to Cal Raleigh. It's the fact that he cannot get an out in the 3 batters that he faces as well. Like just walking the 2 batters and after Raleigh, it's just it set up Sir Anthony Dominguez in a spot that he was never going to succeed.
That's I think, sorry to jump in, Justin, but like I think if Brendon Little gives up that home run, you're obviously not happy, but if he goes ahead and gets 2 strikeouts and then Dominguez comes in and and at least we're tied, even if the Jays lose, I don't think you're looking at the situation. Like the 2 walks are very key to the backlash here, I think.
They literally scored 5 runs that inning off 2 hits. 2 hits alone. It was so frustrating because, as you said, I think everyone in Canada was looking at that situation and saying, why is Little coming into the game? Like, what has he done for you lately that makes you believe that he is the right guy in this spot? It's not, like I said, it's not about the matchup at that point. Like, you need 6 outs. You have 21 out of 27 outs. You need 6 more.
Especially when you consider, and I think we already talked about it, the game kind of had an even more urgency for the Blue Jays because of the George Springer injury. It just made that winning that game last night, it would have been even that much more important because of the fact that your second best hitter this playoffs has been is in a spot where you don't know his availability for the next game. So it's kind of in a spot. They were in a spot where they must have felt like it was a must win to go back to Toronto, knowing you got 2 chances to end the series and move on. And it's just one of those situations where, like you said, things could go any which way, but you can't believe that it went that way and that decision was made in order to get there. It's still like it's baffling to think back and to be in that position again and to see that move was made. It just you can't help but feel bad for all parties involved, but at some point there has to be some accountability, and I'd be surprised if they go on to lose the series and he gets fired. I mean, maybe if this was like a game 7 and this was the last moment you had going into an off season, but they're going to play again. And if they win on Sunday and lose on Monday, people will look back at this decision, but it will be more of like I think all-encompassing thing as opposed to like if this was like the last game we saw of John Schneider and the Jays and we go into the offseason, I think there would be some clamoring for that, and I'm sure there still will be even if they go on to lose the series or move on and lose the World Series, people will still hyper focus on that moment and say, well, we can't have that at some point, we got to move on or whatever the situation is. But yeah, I would be a little bit surprised, but he has not done himself any favors in those huge moments other than whether it's the analytics or just the his own reasoning or between him and Pete Walker.
Like Alex said it best, just over managing the situation. Like you just keep it simple. Like keep it simple, stupid. It's not hard. Like that's the saying. Like it's just.
Sorry. He did that in game 4. We saw it, and everyone loves the viral moment. He goes up and he doesn't trust Max Scherzer at that point, or maybe he doesn't. I shouldn't put words in his mouth, but he goes up to essentially take him out. And Max is like, "Get off the mound," and he's like, "Okay, simple enough. I'm going to leave you in." And again, like hindsight 2020, Scherzer stays in. He has a great impact. He could have given up a couple of runs there, and then we're not laughing at the viral moment on the mound. We're mad at Max for whatever reason. Instead of being mad Max, we're mad at Max. In this situation, it's not simple. It's just two different managers, game 4 and game 5. Like, I don't really know where the change came in. It just, it's like, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like he said,
got cute with it.
He just decided, like, this is the decision we're making. And again, just feels strange that no one, like even online, I don't want to shout out names, just obviously for whatever reason they're tweeting, but like prominent names in baseball are all like, what are you doing? So it's just when something like that happens, it's tough to come back from. I will say you're right, Brandon. I do think game 6 will hide a little bit of this, and possibly game 7, depending on how it goes. But I think, it's just another mark on the resume. That's
if they lose game 6, though, I don't think it hides anything.
Probably not. Probably not.
Because then you go into the offseason with game 5 being your last, or game 6, which you lose, and then game 5, which you lose as your last 2 games of the season. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that he said post-game, Schneider, he said he's going to trust these guys again in high leverage situations, which... Sure, you can say that to the camera, but there's no way in hell that you're letting Little in a situation like that again. I would hope to think that is what is going to happen, because, like, if not, I don't know. I just, that would be then fireable offense to me.
I think baseball I think can be looked at differently, because if you look at like different sports. The only way sometimes to build a guy's confidence back is to just throw them back in the fire.
Yeah.
And so, like, I look at sports that way, and someone like maybe a goalie who's shaky, like, the only way to get his confidence back is to throw him back in. After that interview, and again, I feel bad for Little, because no one's really – you're blaming him, yes, but ultimately he shouldn't be there, so I don't think he's taking the main blame. His confidence is shattered, like, done.
Yeah.
I can't imagine he gets back in again in a high lever. I can't imagine you try and put at least next. For example, if the Jays are up, by 5, 6, 7 runs in game 6, maybe we toss him an inning. Maybe we toss him 3 batters. But if this situation arises again and Brendon Little is in there, I don't want to be even in the vicinity of the Rogers Center, unfortunately.
John Schneider will just be booed out of the building after such a great season. He might even win Manager of the Year, but it might be the worst.
I mean, I don't think we'll see him again in this series, just because of the stink around him. It would be almost like Schneider's putting him back out there to refresh everybody's memory of that happened, right? So, like you said, Alex, I think you put it best. Like, unless there's like some real low leverage situation where he can't hurt you at all, I really don't think we're going to see him again in this series. Obviously, if they move on and they need him at some point, that's a different story. But for the next 2 games, I think he's on the shelf, and I think you'll see Schneider maybe get a little bit more creative if he's in a spot where he needs a lefty or to get a lefty bat out or whatever. So, but yeah.
I think it's still worth talking about, though. Like, obviously it's a big proponent of why the Jays did lose yesterday, but listen, I think they ended the game like 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I don't think you can overlook that. I just think that the hitters get a little bit less credit for the loss, and they get overshadowed by this decision. But especially that top of the 4th, like, unfortunate circumstance, but bases loaded, no outs.
Sucks.
I don't think I've seen a ball travel less than that Ernie Clement hit. That's the most, and he's been the best hitter almost for the Jays in the playoffs outside of Vladdy. So I think you have to look at that too and say, yes, like, the Mariners didn't hit until that 8th inning either, really, but you have to get more off that offense. You can't be hitting 13 runs in one game and 2 in the other. Like there's just that you can't have that happen. And that was a big reason for the loss, unfortunately.
I mean, I will give the offense a pass because that's just an unfortunate thing. Like you said, I don't think we've ever seen a baseball do that before. So it's just unfortunate that that's the way it happened because, yeah, I mean, it was very unfortunate. The one thing I think that is very important looking at this Game 6 is Trey Savage. And now the season, I guess, rests in his hands and what he can do on the mound. Do you guys feel comfortable with him going out in Game 6 after seeing what you saw? And in terms of, I would say the Seattle Mariners in Game 2 probably lighting him up the best we've seen since his MLB debut. Do you feel comfortable with him going out in Game 6, knowing what we saw in Game 2?
I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I there's a level of confidence that I have in Savage that is there and expects him to go out and pitch well enough to give the Jays a chance. But you alluded to it. I think the more he continues to pitch against major league opponents, and especially against the same opponent, it's going to be tough for him to recreate, those special moments, over a long period of a start. I think we'll see him go out and pitch pretty well. Hopefully, limit the Mariners to a run or two at the lead, or at the most, I guess I would say. But yeah, you just hope that it's not, this isn't the game where he, gets figured out or is found out or unfortunately has less than a perfect start, because I think he did pitch really well in Game 2. Mariners did get to him a little bit, but he settled in and it was fine. If we saw a similar thing, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it would be a tough game to go out and give up a couple of runs early. So it's just going to come down to execution for him and whether or not he can command some of his best pitches. We know that sinker is pretty lethal. So if he's firing on all cylinders against the Mariners on Sunday night, then the Jays will be in a good spot. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, comfortable, but not as confident as I'd been in the past, just because we've seen a little bit of a sample size now from Savage and from some opponents.
I think that's a really fair way to look at it, actually. And I think just from a more like intangible situation, just to kind of add on to that, Brandon, like we talked about Little and how unfortunately he's not built for the spotlight, at least in these situations. Savage is built for this.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we saw it in Game 2.
That's fair.
He's pitched 3 major league starts, comes into the playoffs, 11 strikeouts in his debut. You can't recreate that. You just alluded to why, and that's understandable. But like, if anyone has the ball on the mound, I think in situations like this, yes, Gausman, I almost would rather have Savage. And I know it might be early to say that. In 2-3 years, I think obviously Savage is the guy that we is crowned the number one. But I other than maybe Gausman, I think it's very close. Like, you want Savage to have the ball in his hands for this. If they go down, and lose this game, you can't look at it and say, well, you should have had so and so on the mound. He's the guy that you want there, I think.
Quick, Justin. I know Justin probably I know you want to jump in too, but you gave me a thought there, Alex. Like, and maybe this is just me, but if you guys had the option, if it was just these guys were rested, no issue, whatever. Obviously, we know Gausman pitched Game 1, so that kind of led to him pitching in Game 5. If you would you have flip-flopped them, knowing that you would have had a Game 6? You wouldn't have pitched Savage first, giving yourself Gausman either the chance to win the series or the chance to survive the series. That's just kind of where I was just thinking about that. Like, I don't know if I would totally do it. I think it's great to have Savage in the spot, but just knowing the kind of guy Gausman is and what he's given you all year, like I think if I had him available for a Game 6, he would be the guy I would want. But I totally understand what you're seeing.
But I'd much rather Gausman pitch on the road than Trey Savage.
Sure, that's very fair. But having that buffer of knowing that you're going to play another game regardless, it would have been maybe you see Savage pitch another gem and you take it to the bank, and then knowing that you got Gausman and Bieber coming out. But either way, like,
no,
you never
here's
know.
Also another thing that probably goes into the decision. you don't have Trey Savage for Game 7, but you will have Kevin Gausman for Game 7.
Do you think you would have had though, Savage, because he's a younger arm? Like you, for example, let's say Savage pitches 5.
Yeah, same situation.
I just mean he's like, since Kevin Gausman pitched Game 5 and he's not pitching the day before Game 7, if they make it to Game 7, you now have Kevin Gausman available out of the bullpen in Game 7, which you would not have had if you flip-flop these rotations or these two starters. And I would much rather have Gausman available for Game 7, I think.
That's very fair.
And let him be in the bullpen compared to, because he said last night he's going to be ready to go for Game 7. Like, everyone except for Trey Savage will be going for Game 7 if there is a Game 7. It's going to be like, the Mariners are going to want to kill themselves, because that's going to be back-to-back series where every single one of their starting pitchers is in the bullpen except for their starter, and they're just going to have to unload the clip again and just go through everyone. I mean, Game 7 is going to be, I shouldn't even say that.
No, do it.
No, Game 7 is going to be where John Schneider makes or breaks his Blue Jays legacy, in my opinion, because if they win Game 6, everyone knows that Game 7 is going to be a managerial game where he is going to have to make multiple decisions throughout the whole entire game. And that means, like, right from the first inning, hey, if Shane Bieber does not get out here in the first, 3 batters, are we pulling him? Like, that kind of decision right away. And if he does the same kind of thing he did in Game 5, I don't know, man. Like, you can't come back from that. Like, you just can't.
I think let's say there's Game 7, because we're optimistic, right? We talked about what happens in Game 6 for John Schneider's legacy already. Game 7, unless Bieber gives up 5 runs, you can't even sniff the mound, in my opinion. If you go in too early and you pull Shane Bieber and then anything bad happens, why are you there again? Well, you're overmanaging in some ways, and this is an opinion, this might change over 2 days, my thoughts on it, but right now, especially with the stink of Game 5, you cannot overmanage again. That's plain and simple. I don't know what that means from how many innings or how many pitches Shane Bieber gets. You cannot step up there too early. There's just you can't. You did that 2 years ago. You did what happened last night. Just manage it the way you would manage Game 90 of the MLB season. That's it. Just don't pull Shane Bieber, because I think he's struggling for 2 or 3 batters. He'll figure it out. He's 30 years old. He's a veteran pitcher, Cy Young winner. Just let him figure it out. I just think there's no overmanaging in this. I know it's Game 7, but especially for Schneider, I don't know. There's already stink around you. You can't step in too early.
Yeah, it's definitely We'll see if they can even force Game 7. That is the big if here. We hope that they can. Obviously, I think that they will, but we'll see what happens. But this decision might be something that Blue Jays fans are talking about for the next 10 years until they get back to an ALCS again. The ALCS does not come around that often for the Blue Jays, unfortunately. It's not like we're there every single season, and you can just say, oh, yeah, we'll be back in the ALCS next year, so let's just wait until next year and run her back. No.
Yeah, and that's, I think, part of why people are so up in arms about this decision is it does feel like Schneider in that moment was being a little bit too casual. It felt like he maybe didn't feel the urgency of the moment, and he just thought, you said, we're going for matchups.
I think it's a little bit more not casual. I think it was cute. Like he
Yeah,
was trying to get cute with it and try to like, oh, I'm gonna manage the other guy because I know what I'm gonna do, and he's
could
gonna
be.
be like,
Yeah.
oh wow, you cannot deal with this. Like that's what I felt like it was.
Yeah, and it could be that. It could be a combination where it's just like, yeah, like he's not, like you said, that's the same thing where he's not taking into account the moment and what should be done compared to what you might do in a regular season game against an opponent where you're just trying to, like you said, be cute, make the right decision, try to outsmart your opponent. We as we said, that's not really the time. It's more about doing everything you can to win a game when all the marbles are out there and you have no choice. You lose this game tomorrow, you're going home, and like you said, Alex, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of decisions he makes, because I totally agree that, especially with the starter, if we're talking about a Savage, we're talking about a Shane Bieber, we've seen instances where both of those guys have, given up runs early and have settled in a little bit to help a team. So you can't put another, reliever in a spot where, it may fall on him if especially if you're not allowing a starter to really get out of control, because I think their best chance is still to have, their two upcoming starters potentially go 4 or 5 innings and just give the team a chance to stay close, and hopefully the offense, which we talked about and we can talk about more, hopefully the offense can find itself in each of those individual games and come up big, because that's still what it's going to come down to, is whether this team can score enough runs to beat the Mariners. They're not going to win a 1-0 game. I don't think we
they're
going to see that. Yeah.
We're gonna have to see Vladdy continue to do Vladdy things. Like it comes down to that, like, as well. Like it's like, realistically, you get 5 good innings out of Trey Savage. You go to one of your arms in the bullpen. Maybe, like, just depending on the situation, maybe it's Chris Bassett. I can see Louis Varland also being the guy. Like Brendan Fisher, I can see being the guy. Like it depends on the situation. I don't think Brendon Little's going to be back in the or Braden Fisher. Sorry, I don't think Brendon Little's going to be back in the series. I really don't. At least not Game 6. But yeah, like it depends on who he wants to go to in the bullpen in that situation. In Game 7, I would think that in Game 7, I would say matchups matter more in terms of like, hey, I'm going to bring Gausman out of the bullpen and match him up against someone who I think is going to struggle against him. I think that matters more. And it's also like, if Gausman gave up anything in that situation, you can live with that. Like, you can live knowing that your best starter was on the mound and gave up whatever. But it's just, I would go back to it. Like, it's just, the pitcher in that situation cannot be the guy that you choose to ride or die with your season on the line. Like, it's just a terrible decision in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's not on Brendon Little, like you said.
No, I wonder, I would love to know. I mean, obviously he spoke a little bit about it in his post game, but I would love to know truly what his thoughts were coming into that game. If he, obviously you have, as an athlete going into that spot, he's going to be confident. He's going to feel like he can go in and help the team and do everything that he's being asked to do. But I wonder if there was any doubt to think like, if this was the spot for him, if he was questioning or had any doubts about his own performance going in, which we know there had been some struggles. So yeah, I don't think anybody's really putting 100% of blame on Little. I would say the opposite, where a lot of people are not letting Little's kind of skirt by, but saying like, hey, he shouldn't have been in that spot in the first place. Most of the blame seems to be going to John Schneider. And so, yeah, you hope that the Little kid isn't going to be too affected by this going forward in his own life and his own mental health. Hopefully will survive. But that's the job, and it's tough sometimes to be in that position. And yeah, if you want to win a championship, you're going to have to go through moments like that, unfortunately. And yeah, and in terms of Game 6 and 7, I think the hope is that you can get 6 innings from, if we're looking at Game 6, a combination of your Savage, maybe Bassett, even like a guy like Eric Lauer, I think hasn't been used enough. So I would love to see him get an inning or 4 outs or something, a chance to help the team continue to get on. And then if you get to a 7th inning, I think you got to go just Varlin, Dominguez, Hoffman. Just do what you've done.
Just do
and
the
that's
3
it.
of those.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
If it goes wrong, you can say we did our best, because those guys are surely the best you got. So what are you going to do, right? So that's, I think, your plan for Game 6. And then Game 7, if you have the opportunity to have Bieber give you a similar amount of length, you run it back and try the same thing. Because at this point, like you said, Justin, it's no more getting cute, no more trying things and experimenting with matchups or with analytics based stuff. It's time to just put it all out there and give it your best shot. So I hope we get the chance to see that kind of execution play out. But game 6 is going to be an incredible spectacle, I'm sure, down at Rogers Center. So
yeah, the last thing I have to say about the series in general is just for the offense. We've talked a lot about the pitching. We need to see some more offense in these critical situations. We've seen it a lot in this playoffs. Last night, unfortunately, the situations that they were put in, they great offense to start the inning, and they weren't able to sort of finish the inning strong. Were the Blue Jays, outside of a couple of really good RBIs. Ernie Clement's been spectacular. Unfortunate, you can't put the blame on him with bases loaded. 1 out. Dalton Varsho struck out multiple times in situations where you need him to at least put bat on ball. Right? Yeah. So it's like it's unfortunate how that's played out with him. And it's not, it's not his fault, but that's tough.
No,
hey, Brandon, I know you want to jump in there.
He is one guy that I wanted to talk on for sure, is that he was looking at some of his numbers last night. I think he was at one point in the game last night. I'm not sure if he got an at bat after that, but like 2 for 18 in the series, just giving the Jays nothing on the base pass. Like, he's not even able to get on base really to move around.
No, of course.
And that's the problem. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that he has been one of the issues with this offense this series, and that he was when he was in the lineup in the regular season, he was a huge contributor, and he was one of the reasons why the Jays were able to have such a strong offensive season. So to see him kind of fall apart at this time, I know it's been a tough year with different injuries and stuff. So he does get a little bit of a pass there, and he's never going to be the focal point of most fans, ire on when this team bows out. I don't think Dalton Varsho will get a huge amount of the reasoning for it, but there is something to, his bat, especially a lefty bat, that's been important in the past. I think would have been a huge help for this team, take down the Mariners and win some of the games that they lost. So hopefully he finds it and maybe has a huge Game 6 or Game 7. But he's one guy I think that I've looked at and said, hey, if he could have had some clutch hits here or there, this series could have looked a lot different.
And I think just real quick, Justin, last thing I have to say is just like, I knew this might have gone south yesterday with the IKF misplay at second base after his double. I know it's a great play by Josh Naylor to get him out at second. I'm like, you are the 9th batter. Yes, you're the 8th batter. You're the 9th guy, okay? You're the last guy on this roster. You cannot make a mistake. Like, I'm sorry. You cannot, in the major leagues, get thrown out at second when you double to start the inning. Now there's 2 outs and Addison Barger's up. Yes, he's hit some home runs, but I wouldn't say you're putting Addison Barger if you have 1 batter at the plate. He's not your that doesn't matter. I'm rambling there. But point being is, like, you cannot get thrown out at second. It was a great play by Naylor, but that's a huge mistake early in the game. And again, because it was a second inning or something, first inning, like, it's not going to get looked at. No mistakes for the rest of the series. Like, mistake-free baseball, play the way you've played all year. Get some hits. The pitching hopefully will take care of itself. You got some studs on the mound. So I think that's just my final
Hopefully you just put Brendon Little on injury. Get him an injury exempt, and you get Bo Bichette brought back onto the roster for Game 6.
Yeah.
Oh man, don't even start. What could have been, eh?
What could have been?
I mean, I hope they make it to the World Series so he can play. Like, that'd be fun. Brutal for him. Well, we got to talk about Shohei Ohtani, I guess. It's I don't know what to say. Like, the guy is just the best athlete in the world. Like, I don't think there's any denying that at this point. Like, casual 3 homers. Like, first off, casual strikes out the side in the top of the first inning, and then goes out and hits a leadoff home run. Like, brother,
just put the team right on my back, like, plain and simple.
but he's a $2 million guy, guys. $2 million. That's all he's making. So, that's that's pretty hard to pill to
I
swallow.
wonder what the odds were that he hit 3 home runs last night. I wonder if anybody was on that.
Like, it's
The way he's been playing, I don't know.
It's ridiculous. 3 home runs, 6 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts. The man is it's just unfair what he's able to do on a baseball field, both on the mound and in the batter's box. It's not fair. A lot of people should be complaining about it because the Dodgers are ruining baseball, but we aren't going to complain about it because the Dodgers are ruining baseball no matter what.
We'll wait until we'll see what happens in the World Series and then we'll complain.
You have to have you have to have one team that's like on the verge of ruining the sport. Like Kansas City's on the verge of ruining the NFL in terms of they've been winning for like the last 7 years. The Dodgers are the big bad guys in the MLB. I wouldn't say there's a big bad team in the NBA right now. The Florida Panthers are definitely on the verge of ruining the NHL in that sense as well. So, like, there's always going to be one team that's ruining the sport type world.
That's fair.
But for the Dodgers, it's a totally different situation because there is no salary cap and you can go and spend whatever you want. And the thing that just like I think makes everyone pissed off is just they're jealous. They're jealous of the situation because their owner isn't willing to spend the same way that the LA Dodgers owner is willing to spend in order to win a World Series. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Like, you look at their lineup and it's just ace after ace after ace in terms of their starting line or in terms of their starting pitcher lineup. And then you look at their their actual batter lineup. It's just like, how do you pitch around that? Like, you're going to not pitch to Shohei to get Mookie. You're not going to pitch to Mookie to get Freddie. Like, you're not going to pitch to who else? Like Will Smith. You're not going to pitch to Teoscar Hernandez. Like,
yep.
It keeps on going down the list. Max Muncy even comes up with massive hits. Kiki Hernandez is the guy I don't want to pitch to in the playoffs just because that guy, I don't know what it is about the playoffs.
From
I just don't get it. But Tommy Edman, like, he just takes it up a notch in the playoffs as well. Like, it's just every single guy in that lineup. You're just, how do you get around them? Like, anyway, your guys' thoughts on Shohei. Let me know. I know I've been rambling here for a couple minutes.
I'll just jump in quick, Brandon. He's just good. Yeah, I think best athlete in his sport. Like, it's no question about it.
He might be the best athlete in the world, man.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, I think he has to be doing it from both sides of the plate, the best at both sides of the plate. Like, I know he hasn't pitched much in the past couple of years, but when he has, he's been literally lights out. Like, it's unbelievable. And having a presence of him, he's so calm. The way he steps up to the plate, it's so strange. He just looks like he's not ever panicked. Every plate appearance I've seen him step up, same expression. Just, all right, we're just gonna go to work and bring my lunch pail and hit 3 home runs in a deciding game. So it's that presence in that lineup. Even if he doesn't do well, I think when you have him there, I think he's a calming presence. And yes, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, but I think if you have him on your team, whether he's hitting or whether he's pitching or whether he's not doing well either, that he can come clutch in any single moment. And having a guy like that makes you stand, 10 feet taller than you are, I think, as a team. Not that the Dodgers need to, but having a guy, especially in a situation where, yes, they could lose a couple of games. They don't have to win game 4. But why not win game 4 and get some rest ahead of the World Series? And he's like, let's just get this over with. Like, there's not a lot of guys like that in baseball. And I love John Morosi. I really like him as a writer, as an MLB commentator and analyst, but the poor guy is never going to live this down about the whole Jays thing because of how great Shohei is, especially if the Jays make the World Series. So it's going to be that whole
that's
imagine if Shohei joined Toronto. Like,
oh man,
obviously, whatever. I
didn't
think
even think about that.
right? Like that's going to be the main storyline. But that being said, I mean, I'm truthfully, especially how the Jays have performed this year, I have no ill will towards Shohei for making his decision. I don't think you ever should. I think it's a silly mentality to have. But when you watch him, you're like, damn, wouldn't you love to have him in Canada? Like, it's just a crazy situation there and how well he's doing.
Wouldn't you like to add Wayne Gretzky in his prime?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that just be nice?
Well, and the crazy thing is, too, is that they weren't just adding that level of players, that they were adding that player to a team that most people thought was already one of, if not the best in the MLB. So, yeah, you can't help but I think a little bit of that jealousy is in there for sure. But
big time.
You definitely want to see another team take down the Dodgers at some point. I think that's kind of the allure of having a team like that, running through other teams. People thought the Brewers, would have a good shot. The kind of scrappier team that played baseball in a different way and could throw different looks at you and had some really strong pitching. But they were just no concern for those Dodgers. And it's going to be difficult to envision a different outcome in a World Series matchup, especially when you consider that whichever team in the AL comes out of it, they're going to have had a long, brutal series. And is going to have to go up against a team that's going to be obviously very well rested. Obviously, both teams will get us some rest, but the difference will be just the kind of momentum that LA has going into this kind of World Series, where there's no question they were the best team in the NL, and they showed that in the playoffs, and they're going to feel really, really good about their chances going into a World Series matchup against either of these teams. So it's fun. Whenever a league has to change a rule or change rules because of a team or player, that's when you've reached another level. And I think the Dodgers, if there is a salary cap put into baseball, I think the Dodgers as an organization should feel good that they were the reason why that did happen. But they should also feel, a little slighted because they will likely be one of the only teams that will be affected by whatever rules come into play. And that's kind of just the way that the world works these days. Is I think there should be some level of a playing field, of an even playing field, I should say, but I wouldn't make it, incredibly crazy where, half the league has to adjust and start to sell off players or anything. It should just be, have a cap at some level. It can be pretty high so that most teams don't ever reach it, but put something in place so that we don't see these crazy salaries, for the next couple of years. Because I think teams like Dodgers and even the Mets to a level who didn't even make the playoffs, it's like, what are we doing? What's the point here? Like, let's have a good parity-filled league where most teams feel like they have a shot regardless of the payroll. So it's one of those things, but the Dodgers are just on an absolute run. And obviously we would all agree, I'm sure, a World Series here and they're at the beginning of a dynasty, I'd say. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's the Dodgers. That is the Dodgers. They are the best team probably in the world right now. Man, I'm going back to this Morosi storyline of
wrap your
the
head
Jays
around it.
win. That's just going to be brutal to hear the
what
whole
if
time.
Shohei was on that plane? This series could look a whole lot different. You're like, all right.
Can you even imagine like Shohei in this Jays lineup? Like, it's just like, where would he even how would that even
Where would he fit? Is that what you're gonna say? Where would he fit?
He would fit, but like what would it look like? He'd be leading off, and
Probably.
he would be the DH, I guess. Like Springer would have to be out in the field more.
Yeah, Springer wouldn't
which
have
is
the
fine.
season he had.
Probably not. Like it would. Obviously, the team would still be unbelievable, I'm sure, but like it would be such a different look and feel like. But people here would have loved him, and it would have been an amazing situation. And it's just the way, again, the world kind of works, where you follow the money, and he obviously, got a great deal, I'd say. So,
should have offered him $750 million.
No, and he's worth every penny. We're seeing with Vladdy too. It feels like these guys who are getting these huge contracts. At the beginning, people question it, but once you see them play, especially when the chips are laid on the table, it's hard to argue that a guy who can get you to the World Series or win you a World Series, sometimes feels like single-handedly. Like you can't really replace that kind of production and that kind of ability to help you get to that spot every year. And I'm sure the revenue that comes in because of it is well worth the contracts.
Bold take. In one postseason, I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has proven more than what Aaron Judge has proven in all of his postseasons.
Yeah, I mean,
being hot.
Judge has had. You can't blame him for the Yankees losing. He had a pretty decent playoff series, but he's had more opportunity, I think, than Vlad has.
He's also been a notorious playoff choker.
Yeah,
for his whole career. So,
well, yeah, and that's
true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't discount the fact that he will have had a World Series appearance. If the Jays do end up losing in the ALCS, like, you could probably put them at about the same level just because of those differences. But I would agree that Vladdy's individual production this playoffs, it's only a few guys in the history of the league, it feels like, have done some of the things that he's done. So credit to Vladdy, and nobody will ever, I don't think, again, say that he, doesn't come up big in those moments. So hopefully he gets another one, in a game 6 or a game 7, and he comes through and just continue to add to the story that has been Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this season. So
anyways, that just about does it here for episode 38 of the Second Look Sports Podcast. It's basically just a recap of games 3 through 5 of the ALCS for the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners. Mainly just game 5, because that is obviously the talking point. Everything gets magnified even more in these situations. But we hope you enjoyed. Listen, game 6, everyone knows, in Canada at least, everyone will be watching game 6 Sunday night. It goes at 8 p.m. I believe is the first pitch. 8:03, I think, is the first pitch.
It is.
So everyone in Canada will be watching undoubtedly on Sunday night in front of their TVs, hoping to see the Blue Jays extend this to 7 games. And if not, everyone will be going to Tim Hortons the next morning to rant about John Schneider and then talk about the Leafs right after that. Anyways, have a great rest of the weekend and enjoy your guys' game 6 of viewing parties, whatever you're going to do. And we'll talk to you next week when either the Jays are in the World Series or they're in the offseason and we're talking about other sports. Check you later.